Welcome to 4 true scary Tinder dating stories from the internet. Smash like and subscribe to tread the thin line between reality and the surreal. Let's begin our eerie expedition. In the pulsating heart of the city, where skyscrapers clawed at the sky and neon signs flickered with the promise of never-ending activity, Jamie felt a peculiar sort of loneliness. It was the kind that gnawed at the edges of their soul, exacerbated by the constant hum of life around them, a reminder of the connections they yearned for but hadn't found. Their apartment, a cozy refuge adorned with scattered remnants of their life and ambitions, became both a sanctuary and a prison as the isolation of urban living settled in. The flicker of their phone, resting against the backdrop of scattered design sketches and a softly glowing computer screen, became their beacon of hope. Tinder, with its endless stream of faces and promises of connection, seemed like a lighthouse in the dark sea of their solitude. Swiping through profiles became a ritual, a digital ballet danced to the rhythm of hope and hesitation. It was during one of these late-night sessions, amidst the soft hum of the city and the distant siren's song, that Jamie stumbled upon Maya's profile. Maya's smile, radiant and inviting, leaped from the screen. Her interests, a tapestry of creativity and depth, from photography to poetry, mirrored Jamie's own. The spark was instantaneous. A match ignited, followed by the tingling anticipation of a conversation waiting to bloom. Their exchanges began lightly, laughter threading through the words that flowed effortlessly back and forth. With each message, Jamie found themselves weaving more of their life into the narrative they shared with Maya. It felt safe. It felt right. Maya was a mirror reflecting the best parts of themselves, or so Jamie thought. As their connection deepened, so did the well of information they shared. Jamie, caught up in the whirlwind of budding affection and digital intimacy, failed to notice the subtle shift. Maya's questions, once casual, now sought precision, details of friends, favorite haunts, personal anecdotes. Each piece, a tile in a mosaic, Maya was quietly assembling out of sight. It wasn't until the first crack appeared that Jamie sensed the stirring of unease. The ping of a new message, expected to carry warmth, instead delivered confusion and cold dread. A stranger's furious accusations burst through the screen, venomous and bewildering. The words were a tangled accusation of deceit and manipulation, directed at Jamie with certainty and anger. Bewildered, Jamie scrolled through the conversation, their mind racing to place a forgotten offense, but found nothing. Their heart, once buoyed by the prospect of connection, now sank with a heavy, creeping fear. Turning to Maya for clarity, seeking solace in their shared bond, Jamie found only the echo of their own confusion reflected back. Maya's assurances, laced with concern for Jamie's plight, offered no answers, only questions. The seed of doubt, once planted, began to take root, and Jamie realized with a chilling certainty that their quest for connection had led them into unfamiliar and terrifying waters. The city, with its ceaseless motion and noise, offered no refuge from the storm brewing in the digital realm. Jamie, standing at the precipice of an unknown abyss, felt the first stirrings of fear. The realization that their identity, their very essence, might be slipping from their grasp in the hands of a faceless adversary was a specter that loomed large, casting a long shadow over the flickering hope of their Tinder beacon. With the weight of uncertainty bearing down, Jamie's thoughts turned to Sam, a steadfast friend whose wisdom had been a guiding light in times of trouble. In the cyberspace maze, Sam was a navigator, a beacon of technical prowess and loyalty. The decision to seek his counsel seemed as natural as turning to a compass in a storm. Sam's apartment, a chaotic blend of high-tech gear and nostalgic memorabilia, radiated a comforting, familiar clutter. It was here, amidst the aroma of strong coffee and the soft whir of computer fans, that Jamie laid bare the digital conundrum unraveling their life. Sam's initial skepticism, a reflex born of logical scrutiny, quickly gave way to concern as the depth of Jamie's predicament became evident. Encounters with the digital unknown were Sam's forte, and the challenge, however perplexing, sparked his curiosity. Together they embarked on a forensic journey through Jamie's digital footprints, tracing the echo of interactions and the shadowy mirror image twisting Jamie's reality. The quest led them into the dense thicket of online data, through layers of encryption and the slippery trails left by Maya's, or whoever's, manipulation. The breakthrough came with a mix of technical wizardry and dogged determination. Sam, with a click that carried the weight of untold hours, unveiled the source of the doppelganger profile. The reveal was nothing short of a digital unmasking, stripping away the facade of Maya to expose the true architect of Jamie's nightmare, Elena. Confrontation was inevitable, a crescendo in their digital detective story. Jamie, armed with truth and bolstered by Sam's unwavering support, faced Elena across the digital divide. Elena, no longer the comforting mirage of Maya, but a figure shaped by betrayal and scars of her own, offered up her motives with a blend of defiance and despair. She spoke of her past, marred by identity theft and manipulation, a wound that had never healed but festered into a vendetta against the very fabric of digital dating that had wronged her. Elena's confession, a tale of vengeance turned poison, laid bare not just the mechanisms of her deceit, but the depth of her pain. Jamie, caught between outrage and empathy, grappled with the complexity of emotions Elena's story evoked. The encounter, though mediated by screens and miles, was a clash of ideals and injuries, a moment where digital ghosts confronted their flesh and blood counterparts. The resolution of their confrontation was not a victory, but a reckoning. Elena's identity, once masked by digital shadows, was exposed, her campaign of digital vengeance brought to light. For Jamie and Sam, the unraveled mystery was a testament to their resilience, but also a sobering glimpse into the abyss where digital connectivity can lead when twisted by pain and retribution. The aftermath of the confrontation with Elena turned into a moment of grim determination for Jamie and Sam. They knew what needed to be done, the dismantling of the false profile that bore Jamie's name and image. It was a digital exorcism, a purging of the malicious entity that had haunted Jamie's existence in the virtual world. Sam's fingers danced across the keyboard with a fervor, each keystroke a chant against the dark magic of digital deceit. Together, they navigated the labyrinth of the internet, pulling at the threads of the false profile, unraveling its presence bit by bit. Their battle was silent, waged in the glow of computer screens, but it was no less fierce for its lack of noise. As the last vestiges of the echo profile dissolved into the ether, Jamie felt a weight lift, a release of the breath they hadn't known they'd been holding. The demon, conjured from bits and bytes, had been exorcised, but its shadow lingered, a reminder of the ordeal that had altered the course of their life. The task of repairing what had been broken was monumental. Jamie reached out, through messages and calls, to those who had been touched by the false accusations, offering explanations, apologies, and the truth. Some relationships were mended, others remained fractured, but Jamie approached each with humility and honesty. The scars of the ordeal would not fade quickly, but Jamie was committed to the process of healing, both for themselves and for those around them. In the weeks that followed, Jamie found themselves returning to the familiarity of their apartment, the epicenter of their digital and emotional journey. The city outside seemed less imposing, its lights less harsh. There was a sense of renewal in the air, a sense that despite everything, life continued, flowed around the obstacles, and found new paths. Jamie's reflection on the ordeal revealed a new depth of understanding, a new appreciation for the delicate balance between connection and vulnerability in the digital age. They had emerged from the shadow of their digital doppelganger, not unscathed, but stronger, wiser, and more cautious. The experience had stripped them of naivete, but not of hope. The hope for genuine connections, for a touch untainted by deceit, for a light undimmed by the darkness of betrayal. The final glance at the screen, once a portal to a world of possibility and pain, now held a different promise. Jamie knew that their story, a tale of digital ghosts and echoes, was a testament to resilience, a beacon for others navigating the treacherous waters of online connection. They leaned back, the soft hum of the city a comforting backdrop to their thoughts. The journey had been harrowing, the lessons hard-earned, but Jamie stood ready to face the future, emboldened by their ordeal and undeterred in their quest for authenticity in a digital age.
In the dim glow of her laptop, Ella's eyes skimmed through the ocean of profiles on Tinder. Each swipe left was accompanied by a silent wish for something more than the superficial charm that seemed to populate her screen. That's when she stumbled upon Riley's profile. It was unlike any she had seen before, a gallery of serene landscapes and candid smiles, accompanied by a bio that spoke not of mundane interests, but of seeking the deeper meanings of existence. Ella felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps here was someone who could understand the emptiness that echoed within her. They matched, and soon their conversations spilled into the early hours of the morning. Riley's words were like a balm to her weary soul, discussing spirituality, existential quests, and the universal search for connection. Within days, Riley invited her to a weekend retreat in the countryside, a place they described as a sanctuary for like-minded souls seeking enlightenment. Hungry for the depth she had long craved, Ella agreed. The retreat was hidden away at the end of a winding gravel path, shrouded by towering pines. As Ella stepped out of the taxi, a sense of unease briefly touched her, quickly dismissed as nerves. She was greeted by Riley, who embodied the same enchanting presence from their digital exchanges, though now there was a palpable intensity in their gaze. That evening, Ella was introduced to the group, a collection of individuals who all shared a look of serene contentment. The retreat began with what was described as a welcoming ceremony. As the group assembled in a circle around a low-burning fire, chants filled the air, growing in intensity. Ella watched, entranced yet slightly alarmed, as the group's dynamic began to reveal a hierarchical structure, with Riley at its pinnacle, their every word hanging heavy with an unspoken authority. The ceremony unfolded with surreal rites that danced on the edge of Ella's comfort. Riley's speeches wove intricate tales of liberation from societal chains, promising a path to enlightenment for those brave enough to sever ties with their former selves. Ella's fascination battled with the growing realization that this retreat harbored secrets far deeper and potentially darker than she could have imagined. As the night deepened, so too did Ella's suspicion. What had she walked into? Under the guise of night, cloaked in the whispers of the forest, Ella found an unlikely ally in Alex, a fellow skeptic who had once been lured by the same promises that had enchanted Ella. Together, they hatched a plan to escape, their whispered strategy blending with the rustling leaves around them. They chose the upcoming nightly ceremony as their moment to break free, believing the group's absorption in the ritual would provide the cover they needed. The night of their planned escape fell upon the retreat like a thick blanket, suffocating and dense. As the ceremony began, with its hypnotic chants and wild dances around the fire, Ella felt her heart racing, not with fear of the cult, but with the adrenaline of imminent flight. Alex met her gaze, his eyes having a determination mirroring her own. In that moment, they moved, slipping away under cover of darkness, their steps muffled by the forest floor. But freedom was not to be theirs so easily. A sharp cry shattered the night, Riley's voice piercing the air, alerting the group to the fleeing pair. Panic surged as the sound of heavy footsteps chased after them, the once peaceful forest turning into a maze of shadows and danger. Ella and Alex pushed their way through the underbrush, their breaths coming in harsh gasps, the taste of fear sharp in their mouths. As they neared the edge of the forest, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was Riley, eerily calm, a stark contrast to the chaos of their pursuit. "Why run from your destiny?" Riley's voice was smooth, a dangerous undertone lurking beneath the surface. Ella felt a cold chill run down her spine, the realization of Riley's true nature crashing down on her. But it was Alex who spoke, his voice steady. "Our destiny is not yours to command." The standoff was brief, but it was enough. In a desperate bid for freedom, Ella and Alex made a break for it, dodging past Riley. The chase recommenced, more furious and relentless than before. The forest seemed to close in around them, branches turning into grasping hands, the ground a treacherous maze. But the thought of capture, of returning to the entrapping arms of the cult, lent them speed and strength they hadn't known they possessed. Finally, they broke free from the forest's grasp, the open fields under the moonlight offering a brief respite. But the sound of pursuit was ever close, a reminder that the night was far from over. The open fields stretched endlessly under the moon's cold gaze, providing no cover, no refuge from the relentless pursuit. Ella and Alex ran, their bodies pushed to the brink, muscles aching and lungs burning with each desperate breath. The sanctuary seemed a world away, a distorted dream turned nightmare. But the nightmare was far from over. The sounds of their pursuers echoed ominously behind them, a constant reminder of the stakes should they be captured. As dawn began to break, painting the sky with hues of pink and gold, the relentless pursuit finally began to falter. Their pursuers, less familiar with the terrain beyond the confines of the retreat, gradually fell behind. Ella and Alex found their salvation in the form of a small, desolate road. The sight of a passing truck brought them a glimmer of hope, and with it, a ride to the nearest town. Safety was a relative term for Ella and Alex as they sat in the police station recounting their ordeal. The retreat was raided, the cult's practices exposed to the scrutinizing gaze of the law. Yet despite the physical freedom they had gained, the shadows of their experience lingered, haunting their thoughts and dreams. In the days that followed, Ella found herself standing in the quiet of her apartment, gazing out at the city as it woke. The world seemed different now, tainted by the knowledge of what lurked beneath the surface of seemingly innocuous intentions. The physical scars might heal, but the mental ones would take far longer. With a resolute sigh, Ella picked up her phone, her fingers hovering over the Tinder app. With a single tap, the app was deleted, its icon vanishing from the screen. It was a small action, but for Ella, it was symbolic, a declaration of her intent to seek connections in the world around her rather than through the digital veil. The journey had been harrowing, a testament to the darkness that could hide behind a screen. Yet, as she watched the sunrise, Ella felt a newfound strength within her. The experience had stripped her of illusions, revealing a resilience she didn't know she possessed. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and the echoes of her past, but it was hers to walk. And with each step, she would leave the shadows of that terrifying ordeal behind, stepping into the light of a new dawn.
In the tender glow of a laptop screen, Jamie scrolled through a seemingly endless parade of Tinder profiles. Each swipe left was a story untold, a connection unmade, and yet, none sparked the flicker of interest Jamie sought. That is until Samara's profile appeared like a beacon in the digital night. Her silver hair cascaded over her shoulders in the photograph, her violet eyes seemingly piercing through the screen. The bio was a tapestry of literary quotes and enigmatic riddles, promising conversations of depth and intrigue. For the first time in a long while, Jamie felt their hearts skip a beat with anticipation. The match notification was accompanied by an inexplicable shudder of excitement. Their chat began with a simple exchange of favorite books, quickly spiraling into a discussion that leapt from art to philosophy, each message pulling Jamie deeper into Samara's orbit. Within hours, they felt a connection that seemed to transcend the digital medium, as if the screen between them was nothing more than a thin veil. Eager to meet, Jamie suggested a quaint cafe nestled in a cobblestone alley, a hidden gem known for its secluded ambience. Samara's agreement came with an undertone of delight. Preparing for the date felt like preparing for an expedition into uncharted territory. Jamie dressed with care, choosing their favorite oversized sweater, hoping it would convey both comfort and style. The cafe's warm light spilled out onto the street, a soft beacon against the chill of the October evening. As Jamie entered, they were greeted by the rich aroma of coffee and an undertow of anticipation. Samara was already there, seated at a corner table that seemed chosen for its privacy. She was even more captivating in person, her presence an amalgam of grace and mystery. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, orbiting around existential questions one moment and descending into playful banter the next. Jamie felt entirely engrossed, the world outside the cafe's windows fading to insignificance. Samara shared stories of her life, each tale more fascinating and implausible than the last, her past painted like the backdrop of a Gothic novel. She spoke of distant lands, of growing up in the shadow of enigmatic figures whose influence had shaped her into the person before Jamie. It was intoxicating, and Jamie found themselves hanging on every word, every pause, every smile. Suddenly, in the midst of a story about a childhood escapade, Samara excused herself to the restroom. Minutes turned into what felt like hours, and Jamie's initial patience gave way to a nagging concern. Deciding to check, they were met with the perplexed stare of the cafe staff, who insisted that no one fitting Samara's description had been seen that evening. Calls to her number went straight to voicemail, and when Jamie turned to Tinder for solace, her profile had vanished as if it was never there. The cold night air hit Jamie as they stepped out of the cafe, a stark contrast to the warmth just moments before. The sense of connection that had felt so tangible now seemed an elaborate illusion, leaving Jamie to wander the cobblestone streets with a heart heavy with questions and the chilling realization that the evening had taken a turn into the inexplicable. In the days that followed, Jamie's mind became a prison of endless questions with no answers in sight. The echo of Samara's enigmatic stories haunted both their waking moments and dreams. It was a mystery that consumed them, a puzzle demanding to be solved. Against better judgment, Jamie decided to seek the truth, to peel back the layers of Samara's enigmatic facade and uncover the reality hidden beneath. Their first call for aid was to Casey, a childhood friend whose skepticism often served as a grounding force. Over cups of black coffee in a diner that had seen better days, Jamie laid out the bewildering tale of Samara's disappearance. Initially, Casey's reaction was a predictable mix of concern and disbelief, his detective's mind already ticking through rational explanations and dismissing the more fantastical elements of Jamie's story. "It sounds like a classic catfish story, Jamie," Casey said, his voice tinged with a mix of pity and pragmatism. "People create fake profiles all the time." But as Jamie insisted on the surreal elements of their encounter, Casey's skepticism wavered, replaced by a genuine intrigue. The decision was made to dive into the investigation together, pooling Casey's professional skills with Jamie's detailed recollection of their interactions with Samara. The pursuit of truth was a frustrating endeavor. Each location Samara had mentioned turned out to be a figment of the imagination, places that existed only in literature or folklore. Contacts she had referenced seemed equally unreal, their names yielding no results in exhaustive online searches or public records. The more they dug, the more it seemed as though Samara was a ghost, an entity crafted from the ether of digital fantasies. Just as their hope began to dwindle, Jamie received a message that sent a chill down their spine. An unknown number had sent them a text, simple in its inquiry, yet loaded with implications. "Did you enjoy our date?" The simplicity of the question contrasted starkly with the complex storm of emotions it stirred in Jamie. Before they could muster a response, a second message arrived. This one contained an audio clip, a disturbing mosaic of Jamie's own words during their conversations with Samara, distorted and overlaid with whispers that seemed almost otherworldly. The voices in the clip twisted Jamie's hopeful remarks into something sinister, a chilling representation of their vulnerability and trust, manipulated and turned against them. Horrified, Jamie shared the clip with Casey, whose initial skepticism was now entirely replaced by concern. It was a tangible piece of evidence, a breadcrumb on the trail toward understanding the nightmarish reality they had stumbled into. Together, they braced themselves to delve even deeper, to confront whatever twisted game was afoot, driven by the chilling realization that their digital dalliance with Samara had ushered them into uncharted and ominous waters. In the solitude of Jamie's apartment, the eerie whispers from the audio clip seemed to linger in the air, a constant reminder of the enigmatic web they had become entangled in. The digital ghost of Samara had infiltrated the very sanctity of Jamie's reality, leaving a trail of psychological unrest in its wake. As they sat across from Casey, the weight of the situation pressed down upon them, breeding a resolve to face the shadow that had been cast over their life. The investigation had transitioned from a quest for the truth about Samara into a deeper introspection of Jamie's own vulnerability and desire for connection. It was in this vulnerable space, amidst the uncertainty and fear, that Jamie found a moment of clarity. They recognized the allure of the digital world, its ability to weave fantasies that could ensnare the heart and mind, but also its potential to amplify the isolation and emptiness within. With Casey's pragmatic voice grounding the conversation, they discussed the implications of their ordeal. It was no longer just about uncovering the truth behind Samara's disappearance. It was a lesson in the complexities of human connection in the digital age. Casey, ever the skeptic, emphasized the importance of discernment in online interactions, urging Jamie to find a balance between openness and caution. Jamie's resolution solidified in the days that followed. They became more introspective, mindful of the boundaries between the digital personas we craft and the authentic selves that yearn for real connections. The experience with Samara, while harrowing, had illuminated the path toward self-discovery and awareness. As time passed, Jamie ventured back into the world with a newfound wisdom. They approached each interaction, both online and off, with a measured hope, understanding that behind every profile, every text, lies a complexity as profound as their own. The digital landscape no longer held the same allure. Instead, Jamie sought out connections that bridged the gap between the virtual and the tangible, finding beauty in the imperfections and authenticity that the screen often obscured. In a way, Samara had become a ghost of the past, a specter that served as a poignant reminder of the journey from illusion to enlightenment. Jamie, with Casey by their side, embraced the future with an open heart, grounded in the reality that true connections are forged in the depths of genuine understanding and vulnerability. The story concluded with Jamie stepping out into the vibrant tapestry of the real world, the digital echoes of their experience with Samara fading into the background. They moved forward, enriched by the ordeal, carrying within them the lessons learned from the shadowy depths of a digital encounter gone awry. In the genuine smiles, the warmth of human touch, and the shared moments of vulnerability, Jamie rediscovered the essence of connection, a treasure far more precious and real than any digital fantasy.
In the heart of the city, surrounded by the ever-present cacophony of life's unceasing march, Sarah's apartment stood as her solitary refuge. The glow from her phone screen cast a soft light against the darkness of her living room, illuminating her face with the flickering promise of connection. Each swipe on Tinder felt like a whisper of hope, a chance to breach the loneliness that had slowly enveloped her since moving to the city for her career. Yet, for every match that sparked a fleeting sense of excitement, disillusionment soon followed. Conversations that started out with potential would fizzle into silence, leaving Sarah to wonder if the connection she yearned for was nothing more than a digital mirage. That night, however, as the clock hinted at another day's retreat into the abyss of time, Sarah's thumb hesitated on Nathan's profile. His smile, warm and inviting, seemed to reach out from the confines of her phone. The skepticism that had become her constant companion whispered caution, but the hope in her chest fluttered defiantly. She swiped right. Moments later, a match notification sent her heart into an eager dance. Her initial message was tentative, but Nathan's response was swift and charismatic, sparking a conversation that flowed effortlessly. For the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a genuine connection taking root. Over the following weeks, Sarah found herself eagerly awaiting Nathan's messages. Their conversations quickly deepened, moving beyond the superficial niceties that often plagued online interactions. Nathan had a way of drawing out her stories, her dreams, her fears, and wrapping them in a cocoon of empathy and understanding. It was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure, this vulnerability, but Nathan always seemed to say the right thing, his words a balm to the scars left by the city's indifference. Yet, as their relationship blossomed in the digital ether, cracks began to form in the idyllic facade Nathan had presented. His messages, once sporadic and delightful surprises, became incessant and probing. What had initially felt like attentiveness now seemed like surveillance. Sarah's attempts to carve out space for herself were met with resistance, Nathan's charm giving way to possessiveness. The shift was subtle at first, like the changing of seasons, noticeable only when the leaves of once verdant trees lay crisped and brown at one's feet. The true nature of Nathan's intentions became horrifyingly clear one evening, as Sarah prepared to retreat into the solitude of her apartment after another day's labor. A message from Nathan pinged on her phone, its contents a stark departure from the affectionate banter that had characterized their early conversations. He demanded money, his words laced with a venomous threat to release intimate photos and conversations they had shared if she refused. The phone slipped from Sarah's grasp, clattering against the floor as a cold dread suffused her being. The vulnerability she had once found exhilarating had been a carefully laid trap, and she was now ensnared in Nathan's tightening web of blackmail and manipulation. The starkness of her isolation became painfully apparent as Sarah sat in the deafening silence of her apartment, the indifferent glow of her phone screen mocking her plight. Nathan's messages continued, each one a barbed reminder of her helplessness. But in the depths of her despair, a flicker of defiance stirred. Resignation gave way to determination, the realization that she was not powerless in the face of Nathan's digital predation. The fight to reclaim her life and her privacy had just begun. Sarah's once cozy apartment now felt like a prison, each notification from her phone a reminder of the web in which she was entangled. As Nathan's threats escalated, a sense of suffocation, an inability to escape his digital grasp, grew overwhelming. Yet, amidst the turmoil, a glimmer of resolve ignited within her. She wouldn't face this nightmare alone. It was time to reach out, to shed the isolation that had made her so vulnerable in the first place. Jessica had always been the counterweight to Sarah's more reserved nature. Where Sarah saw a wall, Jessica saw a puzzle, a challenge to be deciphered and overcome. It was this tenacity, coupled with her expertise in cybersecurity, that Sarah now sought. Hesitantly, she recounted her ordeal over coffee, the words pouring out in a cathartic flood. Jessica's response was immediate, a fierce protectiveness that banished any lingering doubts Sarah harbored about seeking help. "We're going to fix this," Jessica promised, her determination a beacon in the darkness that had begun to engulf Sarah's world. The plan was simple, yet daunting. They would delve into the digital footprints Nathan had left behind, tracing them back to their origins. Jessica's apartment became their command center, screens aglow with lines of code and data streams that held the key to Nathan's undoing. As they worked, Sarah marveled at Jessica's deft navigation through the digital maze, her confidence bolstering Sarah's own. Their breakthrough came when they uncovered a pattern in Nathan's behavior, linking him to previous instances of digital harassment. But they needed more, tangible evidence that could not only free Sarah from Nathan's clutches, but ensure he could never prey on another. It was a monumental task, one that required expertise beyond their current means. Enter Detective Miller, a seasoned officer with a keen sense for the undercurrents of the digital world. His reputation for handling cases of cybercrime preceded him, and their meeting at the police station was tinged with a palpable sense of urgency. Sarah recounted her story, each word a testament to her resolve not to be defined by her victimhood. Miller listened intently, his demeanor instilling a sense of confidence that they were on the brink of something pivotal. "To take him down, we'll need to be strategic," Miller advised, his experience shaping their approach. "We can use what he wants against him." They crafted a plan, utilizing Sarah as bait in a carefully controlled environment to draw Nathan into the open. It was a risk, one that had Sarah's nerves fraying at the edges, but the thought of reclaiming her life, of rendering Nathan powerless, fortified her resolve. In the quiet before the storm, as they finalized their strategy in Jessica's apartment, Sarah felt an unfamiliar sense of camaraderie. Here, amidst the wires and screens, she found an unexpected form of connection, one that was real and tangible. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts, a united front against the shadow that had loomed so large in Sarah's life. The plan was set, the trap laid. Now, all that remained was for Nathan to take the bait. The day of the confrontation dawned clear and bright, a stark contrast to the turmoil churning within Sarah as she made her way to the appointed location, a public park chosen for its open spaces and constant flow of people. Detective Miller and Jessica stationed themselves discreetly nearby, their presence a reassuring anchor as Sarah awaited Nathan's arrival. Nathan, unsuspecting the trap that had been meticulously laid for him, arrived with a smug confidence that set Sarah's teeth on edge. She suppressed the urge to flee, grounding herself in the knowledge that Jessica and Miller were mere steps away. As Nathan approached, the facade of charm he had so effectively wielded in their digital interactions crumbled, revealing the predator beneath. His demands were blunt, devoid of the manipulative sweetness that had once fooled Sarah. But Sarah was no longer the woman who had swiped right on Nathan's Tinder profile. With a steady voice, she refused his demands, her refusal a declaration of war against the fear he had instilled in her. As Nathan's demeanor shifted from smug assurance to bewildered anger, Jessica executed their plan's technical component with precision, capturing every word, every threat Nathan hurled at Sarah. The public setting, the crowd milling about in blissful ignorance, provided the perfect backdrop for Nathan's unraveling. As he realized the extent of the trap, his arrogance gave way to panic, the fear of exposure stripping him of control. It was then that Detective Miller made his move, his approach measured and authoritative. Nathan's arrest was swift, the evidence of his crimes undeniable thanks to Sarah, Jessica, and Miller's efforts. In the aftermath of Nathan's arrest, Sarah stood amidst the park's tranquil beauty, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. The weight that had pressed so heavily upon her lifted, leaving a sense of liberation in its wake. She had reclaimed her life, her privacy, and perhaps most importantly, her sense of self. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and healing. Sarah's story, once a source of personal torment, became a beacon for others who had suffered in silence. She spoke at a digital safety seminar, her voice steady and unwavering as she recounted her ordeal. The audience listened in rapt attention, their faces a mosaic of empathy and resolve. Sarah's experience had transformed her into an advocate for digital safety, her tale a powerful testimony to the importance of vigilance in the digital age. As Sarah concluded her speech, the crowd erupted in applause, a tangible manifestation of their support and solidarity. Jessica and Detective Miller stood among them, their pride evident in their smiles. Sarah met their gazes, gratitude swelling within her for the role they had played in her journey. The connection she had sought on Tinder, fraught with vulnerability and deceit, had ultimately led her to a deeper, more meaningful form of connection, one forged in the crucible of adversity. As she stepped off the podium, Sarah knew that her story was just beginning. With every word spoken, every warning shared, she was helping to light the way for others trapped in the shadows, guiding them towards a future where they too could reclaim their power.